Today, we're going to cover the necessary topics that any new client would need to know in order to start using their system. We're going to cover how to get leads into your system and then how to route them to your partners, that is, those receiving the leads from you. When you're a new client, you're probably most eager to learn how to get leads into your system. And when you're talking about leads getting into your system, the two components in boberdoo that you'll really need to focus on are sources and also vendors. And so we'll take a look at that right here. To get to your sources, you'll see you have your menu across the top. And if you click on the main sources tab in the blue section, it'll take you to the main page. Now, this is a system that's already in a testing mode. If you have a brand new system, you won't see any sources here. And to create a source, we very highly recommend that you use the source wizard. This tool allows you to create a source. And this would be a source that is, think of it as a pipeline into your system from wherever you're generating the leads. It can be from a web form, it can be from social media, or it could even be from a third party who is selling those leads to you. All of those scenarios would work. And using the source wizard to create the source or the pipeline for those leads to enter into your boberdoo system is as simple as using this tool. So the first step, you're offered a way to select how these leads are coming in. In this case, we'll just assume that this is going to be set up for a web property that is submitting leads through a form. And so in that case, we'll cover that. The other selections here, you can see direct post from a vendor. Vendor is our term for anyone that represents a lead generation third party. They could be selling it to you, or it could be one of your salespeople internally. But either way, that vendor account can represent somebody providing those leads. And you have a number of options, whether those are going to be dynamic with regard to setting up pricing and such. But for now, we're going to just focus on this web property. When we click next, we're offered the opportunity to put a name. And so I'll see if I can come up with a name that hasn't been used yet. And you'll find pretty quickly that the source naming convention will not allow for spaces. The setting partners per lead is just touching on whether you want the lead to be sold to multiple partners. That would be a shared lead type scenario. Leaving it at one would be, of course, an exclusive lead, meaning that only one partner would receive the lead. This is a rule that is governed in the source, so that when the lead comes in, that rule will apply to it. When we click Save Changes, we have this button for the PDF specification. This is all of the information you would need to know in order to integrate an existing web form that you have and are managing to be able to submit via an API. If you're familiar with that term, that is all of the information to basically make a data transfer from your web form that you're hosting and getting it into boberdoo. And this would be the information. So when you click on this, it downloads that PDF, and then you can provide that to whoever is your developer, or maybe your own developer, and then you would use that information to integrate that web form. When we go back to the main landing page for the sources, you'll find that your brand new source is there. If you click on the pencil icon, that'll take you into the edit mode for that source. You'll see that there are quite a number of settings, about half of which are designed to facilitate transactions for acquiring the lead. That would be in the situation where you're purchasing that lead from a vendor. Otherwise, the other settings are set up suitably that if you're generating your own leads from, in this case, a web page, the settings are there. Most notable to look at is, of course, this second line item, the vendor. It's always a good idea to have your sources associated with a vendor in your system. In this case, you'll see that there's a drop down of quite a few vendors, one of which you'll see in your system, in any brand new system, will be internal. And that's a great place to start, particularly if you're generating your own leads. That internal vendor will represent your internal lead generation just fine. Otherwise, you can create vendor accounts, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. Otherwise, the rest of the sources is worth studying. And if you have any questions about the settings in here, we certainly encourage you to open a ticket and send it to our support team, and we can give you some good advice in terms of how to approach some of these settings. To talk about vendors, you notice in the same sources tab, we have this ability to hover over it. And when you look at this sub-tab for manage vendors, we have some vendor accounts in here. Of course, you can always add a vendor using the two tools up here. Otherwise, we'll look at real quickly a vendor account. There's not much to really show you other than to give you the idea that it's an account that would very much represent a business that you're working with. I think most often our clients are using vendor accounts to represent a third party that's selling them leads. And then we also see a lot of clients also making these vendor accounts. Again, like I suggested earlier, you might have a sales representative that is generating leads on your behalf, and you want to make sure that they get the credit or the commission related to that. You can create a vendor account so that all the leads they generate, they can get the proper credit for that. The other things to show you real quick about sources before we switch gears and talk about partners. If you ever need to retrieve those API specs for your sources, right next to the pencil icon is this small button here, but it does allow you to download the PDF documentation anytime you need it. So look for that there. One last thing to touch on with regard to getting leads into the system. This might be a topic that's more for advanced users, but if you do go into either your leads tab, you can look at lead types. And here you can see all of these lead types are in this system. If you have a brand new system, you might have one or more. Certainly inbound phone is one that you would find in a brand new system. Otherwise, the rest of these lead types are really verticals. You can tell us what set of fields you want to provide us. We can create a lead type for that. And this would be the fields. For example, if you had a web page that was hosting a form, all of the fields that you're capturing on that form, you would provide that list to us, and then we can create a lead type that is able to accept all those fields. And so the idea is that the form would be sending into boberdoo, and you want to have the fields inside boberdoo to receive that data for those specific fields. So all these lead types are created by our team. And so if you have a specific lead type you need for us to build for you, we can certainly do that. Just open a ticket and give us the list of the fields that you want. We also have some lead types that we can just enable in your system that come kind of standard with your system, depending on what line of leads that you're generating. The other thing to show you real quick, again, more for the advanced users, the API keys and specs for the sources that you create, you can access those individually. You have the API keys here. Here you can see all of them listed here. This is a great example of when you're using that source wizard. You can see that it's referencing that this is the key that was created by the source wizard automatically during that process. Likewise, in that same API area, we have the API specs, and this is where you can go back and get all the information related to the lead type. You'll notice here this big list of alphabetized titles here. These are all the API actions, the various different ways that you can transfer data. It's quite a long list. We won't go through it here, but it's certainly worth browsing. If you're familiar with APIs, you can see that there's a lot of functions that you can perform with this. Okay, getting back into the system here. Now we'll talk about partners. Partners, again, are the accounts that you'll create for any recipient of your leads. And we see two common scenarios with our clients. Just as what we see is we have clients that will be selling their leads. That's pretty common. And so anyone you're selling your leads to would be a partner account in your system. If you're in the situation, we see this a lot of times with insurance companies where you're actually distributing your leads internally, meaning you have insurance agents that work within your company, but you still want the leads to route to them. You can also create partners to represent those agents, even though they're not purchasing the leads from you. The mechanics of boberdoo will still allow you to distribute those leads to those agents. So you can see here we have some partner accounts. A brand new system is not going to have any partners, and you can create a partner. We have a wizard. This takes you through a number of steps that will create for you the components necessary to have an active partner. The quick add is another tool that if you pretty much know exactly what you want, the quick add will allow you to quickly put that partner together. We will look at an existing partner just in the interest of time. Partners are divided into two parts, really, their account is. You have this pencil icon, which represents the contact information and other account settings related to the partner. And then this funnel icon is actually the filter sets, and we'll look at that first. This, of course, is a brand new partner that was created in the system, and so there are no filter sets. And so we'll go through the process of creating one. The first step is to recognize that filter sets are dedicated to the specific lead type that you need them to be handling leads. And so you'll notice that we have this drop-down menu in the upper left, and it lists all of the lead types. And so in this case, we'll select home improvement. Once you have the proper lead type that you need that filter set dedicated to, then you click this plus button, and it will generate the brand new filter set. And so here we see all of the options that you have available to you in the filter sets. Of course, you have the naming convention. Right below that, you have price, and price and cost. If you noticed in your sources, there was a setting for cost. Here in filter sets, we call it price. Really, they're two very different things in terms of terminology. Cost is a value associated specifically with the source. Price is specifically associated with the filter sets. The next thing to look at that's universal for most of our clients is the accepted lead sources. Here you can see all of the sources in the system for the specific lead type are listed here, and of course are selected. And then you can pick and choose that if you need this filter set to only receive leads from specific sources, depending on what your setup is, that can be done. Here you can also see that the cost is being displayed with the source. So here's kind of just driving that point home. This is the cost that is set for the leads coming in through that source, and so the price you would probably want to set accordingly so that you're meeting that or exceeding that, so that you get your margins that you need. That is, of course, in kind of a direct post scenario. Things get a little bit different if you're talking about ping post, and that probably is a topic for a separate video all on its own. But for the purposes of this demonstration here, just be aware that all your filter sets, just be mindful of what sources are selected. Right below that, the other very important line item in your filter sets is the lead delivery setup. This determines how the lead data is going to be provided to your partner. If you're like a lot of our clients, your partners will have a CRM that they want their data to be transported to so that they can manage the lead. In that case, you'll need to get the API specs from your partner for their CRM so that then that data could be automatically submitted. When you receive those API specs from your partner, if you're like a lot of our clients, you'll just simply open up a ticket and turn those over to the boberdoo team for us to build what we call a custom delivery setup. And once that custom delivery is completed, this drop-down menu will display all of the available custom deliveries. You would just simply find the one that was built specifically for this partner, and then select it. And then it'll be automatically submitted into when any lead matches this filter set. The remaining settings in filter sets are pretty self-explanatory. We talked briefly in sources about the shared leads. You have also a setting in your filter set so you can dedicate a filter set to only accept exclusive leads or be part of a shared lead chain. Also, you have some limits that are provided in your filter sets. Also, be aware that your partner account has some overall limits that can be set up, and those can be done in tandem. Just be aware that if you set up these limits here in the filter set, that is only specific to the filter set that they're set up in. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to cap leads to your partners if that's necessary. After the limits, there are some scheduling tools. So if you have partners that want, say, for example, their leads to be submitted only during their business hours, you can actually create up a set of rules to meet the calendar needs that they might have. You can basically create as many line item of rules as you like to specify what constitutes their business hours. Likewise, right below that, you'd also have this tool. It basically allows you to black out certain dates. If this partner is going to be on vacation, for example, you can use that as well. The remainder of the filter set is dedicated to identifying what leads are going to match to the filter set. So for example, if this partner only wanted to get leads in Colorado, you could then have this filter set to then only accept leads for Colorado. And so by enabling this specific field and selecting which field or multiple ones, depending on what the needs are, you could filter down what leads will match that way. This tool is often a little bit confusing with new clients. Turning this on and off enables this parameter. You'll notice that the selection still stays, but even though it's off, this is just to save you a lot of headaches. That if you wanted to temporarily undo these filtering parameters, you can just simply turn this parameter off without having to go through and click things. You have the option also with zip codes. You can either choose to ignore a list of zip codes or include it, meaning that all the zip codes listed here are acceptable leads to match to this filter set. Pretty much any field that your lead type is capturing, we can include it in your filter set. So for example, here in the home improvement world, if this were a recipient that only did certain types of projects, you could select those types of projects specifically so that only those projects would match to this particular partner. So it's really up to you, and partly also with your partner in terms of how much detail you want to apply to your filter sets. And of course, after setting up any new filter set or editing a filter, always remember to save that. And this is what the filter set looks like in the system when it's available. You'll notice that there is these green check marks with a lot of the components throughout boberdoo. These are so that you can make the component active or inactive. It comes in handy if you have a operating system and you're building out new partners or other components and you don't want to affect any of your lead flow. You can turn those components off. Just remember to come back when you're going live and just turn all of them back on. So that covers partners and their filter sets. If you click on the main menu again, it takes you back to your main landing page for partners. I mentioned that partner accounts are divided into two parts. We looked at the filter sets, of course, real briefly. The pencil icon does give you all of the information about the partner, the contact information like you would expect. There's some account information, like I said, some settings that would be some preferences in terms of how the relationship with the partner might go through. For example, can the partner change their status? What that is speaking to is that your partners actually have a dedicated portal that they can log into. And if you want, you can enable the ability for your partners to either turn their account on or off, depending on what their needs are. Comes in handy for some of our clients, but for others, that's not so useful. Also, likewise, you have the ability to manage whether your partners can request refunds. And so this is a good panel for those kinds of settings. One thing to be mindful of with your partners is that in order for them to receive leads, they also have to have sufficient funds, particularly if you are selling those leads to them. You'll want to come and check what their balance is in their system. Here you can see this is at minus 100, which would certainly indicate that maybe we need to make an adjustment here. One thing you can do is add a new transaction, and you can adjust the balance. So we just added $100 to the account, and now we're back to zero. So that would at least get rid of that deficit. The other section that goes right into this transactions tab in this drop-down menu, you'll also find the invoicing and billing. And this panel here, these settings also play into that balance that we were just looking at. In particular, this credit limit line item. What this manages is how the system will be able to match leads based on the balance Of course, you need sufficient funds. As you can see here, we have no limit selected, which means that that balance is actually going to be permitted to go below zero without any restriction at all, and they'll be able to purchase leads with nothing that stops them. On the converse, if you were to say you want to limit the account and leave this at zero, meaning that when their balance reaches zero, then they will be no longer permitted to purchase leads because they will no longer have sufficient funds. Third option is we could actually say this and put 1,000 in there. What that is saying is that the balance is now allowed to go below zero to 1,000, so minus 1,000, and then at that point the system would then no longer permit leads to sell. So a number of different options of how you can handle that. If you're not selling leads, this isn't as much of a concern, but just be mindful that you still need to make sure that there's a way for them to purchase leads. So in other words, if you had this at zero, but for some reason you had a cost associated with your leads coming in, there would still need to be sufficient funds in order for those leads to match, even though you're not selling leads per se to your insurance agents. If that were the case, you still need to make sure that that's set up properly. The remaining settings here are also settings that you can use in relation to a partner having a credit card. And so if that's something you intend to do with your partners, to set them up with credit cards, well, then of course you'll need a payment gateway set up as well. And so that's kind of a different topic that we won't really cover in great detail here, but you'll want to give some thought about researching authorize.net or Stripe, which are two payment gateways that boberdoo supports. And we can certainly work with you to help you set that up. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to open up a ticket, or we have chat. So if you want to reach out to us, our chat, we monitor that. Our support team does during our business hours in the Chicago area. So just kind of do the time zone calculation and you can reach us during those business hours. That covers partners. And we talked about sources. Those are the main components that you'll need to get leads flowing through your system. Obviously, there are many other sections to the system that we could show you and often do in a proper new client onboarding scenario. But here we just wanted to cover as briefly as we possibly can the very bare minimum components that you would need to be setting up. So at this stage, if you have followed along and you've got your system set up the same way that we were discussing here, you could certainly feel free to start experimenting with sending some test leads in. And then you can study those strings and responses and to work on getting those leads in successfully. I'll leave you with this. When you're doing test leads, there are 3 statuses that you can expect when you're sending a lead into Boberdoo and you're looking at the response. One of the 3 is error. Error would mean that the lead is not submitting properly into the system, and so you'll need to look at the error message to get a notion as to what needs to be adjusted. The other 2 statuses that you would get would be unmatched or matched. Both of those statuses mean that it's a successful test in the sense that the lead is getting into the system. Now, if you really want to take it a step further, you'd probably want to make sure that you're getting a match lead. The unmatched lead that you would get in that status is just simply saying that there's not a partner account or filter set that's set up properly to receive that lead, even though the lead is getting into the system. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, we wish you luck and welcome to the Boberdoo community. And we look forward to working with you. And we hope that this video was helpful for you. And we will see you soon. Thank you.